Hello again and welcome back to our course on Project 2019 Advanced. One of the features of the reporting facilities in Project 2019 is the facility to compare two versions of a project. Now, although this comes under the heading of the reporting facilities, it's not generally something that you would probably present to stakeholders, but it can be a really useful feature. And in my experience, quite a lot of project managers could make good use of this, but don't, possibly because they're either not aware of it or they've never really looked into how to use it. So what I'm going to do in this section is to give you a very quick demonstration of the project comparison feature and a very quick explanation of what it does and how it can help you. So this is the situation for me at the moment. I have version 15 of the website project open, and I need to compare this version with the first version that I ever made, website 01. Now, in fact, I can compare it with any other version of this website project. So if, for example, I've been working on this for 2 or 3 weeks and I want to compare it with how it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe version 12 or something like that, then that's absolutely fine. But what I need to do is to have both versions open and to have the later one, or certainly the one that I consider to be the later one, the current one normally, I need to have that selected. So I have version 15 open, and in fact I've just added a task to version 15, so you won't see this in the earlier version. And it's a user testing task, and it's here with task ID 21. But if I want to, I can go onto my View tab, click on Switch Windows and switch to my website 01 version, which I also have open. And if you remember, we used this one right at the beginning of our project. So let's switch back to our latest version. So the first thing we do is we make sure version 15 is the one that's currently selected. And then on the Report tab, right over on the left, we have a button for Compare Projects. So first of all, it says compare the current project. That's why it's important to make sure that you have selected the project you're working on, in this case the latest version, version 15. Now I might have several previous versions open. At the moment I've only got one, but if I've got more than one, I would select the one that I wanted. So you can see here in this box, it's showing my website version 01. Now, what I need to do is to select the fields for comparison. So what this facility doesn't do is to compare absolutely everything about these two projects. So it doesn't give you a full-blown report on every possible difference. It will compare some of the values though. So basically what you do is to specify the task table. Now I'm going to use the default task table, which is entry. And the resource table, again, I'm going to use the default value there of entry. Now it's limited in terms of how many it can process. So you'll quite often be told that it's only been able to do a comparison between a limited number of columns. Now if that's the case, you can always circumnavigate that by creating a custom table. So now that I've selected my tables, I can click on OK, and you'll quite often get this message. There are too many columns of a certain type in the currently selected task or resource table. For each column in the table you selected, the report includes 3 custom fields to show the values in the current project, the previous version, and the difference between the two. So what it actually does is to create a sort of dummy or temporary project that includes custom fields. And the custom fields are used to show you the current value, the original value, and the differences between them. So if you're happy to carry on as we are, I'm going to click on OK. So when it's finished, you'll see something like this. You'll see first of all that on the ribbon there is a new tab called Compare Projects, which is currently highlighted. And if you look at the view group to the left of that tab, you have a choice between task comparison and resource comparison. Now, although we're doing 2 comparisons, when I set this up, I'll use the entry table for both. I could, of course, used different tables. But when you've done this, basically the pattern is the same for the both. The display below is in 3 parts. So the bottom right-hand corner includes the old project. So I'm looking at the resource comparison. So that's website 1 down there, the original resource sheet. Bottom left-hand corner, we have website 15 resource sheet. And above it, I have the comparison report. And to the left of the comparison report, there is a legend. And the legend indicates some of the straightforward markup that you'll see in the comparison report. So for instance, where there's a plus, it indicates something that's only in the current project. So this is normally something that's been added. And where you see a minus, there's something that's only in the previous project. So this is normally something that's been deleted. So you can see here the resources have been added and subtracted through the life of this particular project. Now what you'll see here in the comparison report is that we have these fields in groups of 3. So there's duration current, duration previous, and duration difference. And you can see anywhere the duration is different. Then we have start current, start previous, start difference. And you can see if we scroll up that one of the big differences is the requirement sign off. The start date has actually slipped. It's gone back 25 days. So if you go through the comparison project, you can see those differences, and somewhere down there, you can also see the task that I added. So let's scroll down. And if you remember, I added user testing. And it has a plus next to it. And if we look at our legend, we can see here comparison report. The plus means only in current projects. So that's something that's been added. Now, when Project 2019 is making its comparison report, it's basically using custom fields. Now, in theory, if you've used custom fields in your actual project, you might think that there's going to be a problem. Well, in theory, there isn't, because the Project 2019 comparison project is using its own versions of these fields. It's actually a project in itself, so it's got its own fields. The problem I've discovered that can happen in some instances is that if you have a calculated custom field, the calculated custom field may apply within the comparison project as well. Now, this doesn't necessarily cause a problem, and again, in my experience, the comparison still works, but it's something that I've noticed, and it can be a bit baffling when it happens. So when you finish looking at this comparison, you can close that tab. So I'm going to click Close Comparison. And you can still see the comparison report, which in itself is a project. And you can see at the top there, it's named Comparison Report. So if I wanted to, I could save that, or I could just close it down, depending on what I want to do. In this case, I'm going to close it down. So I'm just going to click on the cross. And it says, do you want to save the changes to your comparison report? And in this case, I'm going to click no. And it takes me back to my original 01 website project. So that's it on comparisons. Please join me in the next section.